What are some of the most unconventional or lesser known workouts or exercises you've tried that turned out to be surprisingly effective?
I love the Bulgarian bags.
Oh, yeah.
Love the Bulgarian bags. Why? Well, first off, what's the Bulgarian bag? The Bulgarian bag looks like basically a kidney bean with handles on it and some straps on it. It was designed by a Greco-Roman wrestler who was tired of having his athletes leave the wrestling room to have to go to the strength and conditioning room, which costs time, also creates distraction, right? And then he couldn't control what his guys were getting because they were going to see like different coaches or whatever. And they didn't necessarily, there's a lot of strength training going on in the strength and conditioning room, but not a lot of conditioning going on in the strength and conditioning room. And that bothered him. So he developed this tool, which could be kept in the wrestling room or in the mat room that took up very little space that had a ton of utility to it. Ton of utility to it. So,
I took a certification a couple months ago in the Bulgarian bag here that we hosted here, and we did all these tests with 26-pound bag, and I was fucking fried for days. It was just gassed. So
you should have been here the first time.
And it was a one day. I did a one day. I know you guys did 2 days, so I can't believe that. But
Bulgarian bags are awesome. Anything you can do with a kettlebell, you can do with Bulgarian bags, pretty much, and it doesn't work the other way around. Think lots of rotation. If you're a grappler, if you're in an MMA and you're not using the Bulgarian bag in your conditioning routine, you're missing out. Yeah. There's a ton of direct application there.
And they make different covers for them too.
They actually make a gi that goes over that in terms of working your grip strength. One of the first things you'll notice when you use a Bulgarian bag for any of the exercises that it kind of exist there, where you have the bag in your hand, there's some stuff you can do on the floor with it and whatever, where it's a little bit more static, is your grip.
Yeah.
If you're looking to increase grip strength and endurance, dude, like the Bulgarian bag is amazing. So that's my pick.
I mean, that's probably the best one. All Superless equipment. They have the Superless ball, the bands, everything they put out.
The bands are great.
There's lots of regressions, 2 progressions of things that can be super dynamic. This isn't that unconventional, but it's kind of tied to it, is just kettlebell work.
Yeah, I love the kettlebell.
Getting more.
Stole mine.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I stole it. Kettlebell, but getting out of, I love a kettlebell swing, a basic kettlebell swing, which a lot of people, if you're not even doing that, you should be doing that. That works on a whole host of things. But then getting in different planes of motion, getting into single leg stuff. I think like an exercise that is super, super impactful is just like a split stance kettlebell swing that a lot of people don't do, but does a lot for the hips, does a lot for, it's more athletic. I think in a lot of ways it's a lot more applicable for that. So kettlebell stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Kettlebells are awesome.
I would say the landmine.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Or sometimes we call it the renegade. Yep. It's where, you put it into a base and it has a rotational component to it. So you put a barbell in the sleeve that's tied to a base. And you could do just about every exercise that you can think of with it. So you can go overhead at different angles. You can do pressing. You can do pulling. You can do hinges, squatting. You can move laterally. And the thing is, as well, the barbell moves around you versus you moving around the barbell at times.
That's
but you can do that as well. But I really like that because it just provides so much variety and it's multi-planar and it can be used dynamically or it can be used more in a controlled and heavier manner as well.
Yep. Steven, what do you like about the kettlebells, man?
Well, I have another one. I had a backup. I had a backup too. Yeah, I had a backup prepared.
Always prepared. Where's your notes?
Because it's helpful for me because I feel like I started at Red Dot coming from like pretty traditional weightlifting at a 24-hour fitness with dumbbells and barbells. So kettlebell definitely was something I didn't have much experience with. But also the Dynamax balls and med balls are weighted med balls. That's something I didn't have very much experience with that now I love to incorporate in my workouts for a lot of rotational stuff, for power movements. That was something that I think is also, it's accessible for a lot of people. We have people who are very beginner level exercisers that we are using the Dynamax balls and the Slam balls or weighted med balls with.
I think there's a time and a place for all of this stuff and all the equipment like we have here and like a lot of gyms have, but all the equipment that was mentioned here are just like the modalities that could be used. There's so much utility in all of those. Like if you had just a small garage gym or you're very limited on time equipment, whatever, if you had a couple kettlebells and you don't need a lot, like really We've talked about this on the show before with some other like SMEs in the kettlebell world, but like how many kettlebells do you need? You don't need very many. How do you choose your weights? That's a little bit more individual. Again, we covered this a long time ago, but the point of that being, if you had a couple kettlebells, like one Bulgarian bag, right? And there's ways to kind of calculate what your weight. The barbell, right, which they could then go into the landmine, and then going back to your med balls, dude. Like, obviously, like if you're going to spend your money in places, like going out and buying like dumbbells, you got to have a whole set of dumbbells because there's a different, you need all those different weights. With these, with all that stuff, you could really get a great routine.
Yeah, I would add one more as a TRX. It's the same thing. Very versatile. Suspension trainer. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of utility in those as well, or rings. A set of rings if you wanted for the pulling exercises.
Well, I like the TRX or the suspension trainer too, kind of going back to our previous podcast we talked about as far as for my mobility work to get ready.
The assistance that it kind of gives you.
The assistance, and then also just it's so versatile as far as being multi-planar as well when you're moving your body.
Yeah, that less conventional stuff has a lot of value.
Is there a benefit to cheat days? Do they actually help or hinder progress? And what's your favorite cheat meal?
So everybody wants to start with the cheat meal first because everybody got big eyes when Eli asked that question.
I was like, well, I think it depends on the individual as far as whether or not they feel like they need a cheat meal.
We'll come back to the cheat meal. All right, let's talk about.
All right, well, I got one.
So do I. I mean, it's the go-to every single time.
Yeah.
But let's talk about a cheat day and what that actually means. I mean, how would you define a cheat day, Stephen?
Well, I mean, I think how people describe it, and I think there is a psychological kind of fallacy here. Number one, if we call it a cheat day,
that's dangerous.
That implies that you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
That implies that you're breaking the rules, that there is, and that sort of creates like this forbidden fruit effect where, say like, oh, well, Saturday's my cheat day, and you put it up on this pedestal, and then you begin to create this anticipation of that day, and then you just go buck wild on that day. You
eat 10,000 calories.
Yeah, you psychologically it creates this like, oh, I can't wait to get to my cheat day. I particularly don't like calling it that again because cheating implies that you are breaking rules or you're doing something wrong. Versus if you have just a day where you have a little higher calorie day.
Planned.
A refeed day.
Yeah. I mean, you could call it that. You could call it a recovery day, or you could just call it like, I don't feel like cooking tonight and I just want to have some food, some takeout food, whatever. Like it doesn't have to be like this event, like, all right, my cheat day is here. Let me like loosen my belt and just like
put on the stretchy pants.
Go wild with
versus things becoming more of a lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
go ahead. I think it gets dangerous, quote unquote, dangerous when you have a cheat day because let's say you're somebody who's working on very specific goals. You're very, disciplined in what you're consuming. And then you come to that day. And if you have too many cheat days, if every Friday is a cheat day in a month,
that'll add up.
Yeah, that's going to add up and you're going to be working against yourself.
Yeah. I think it's a whole day. Yeah. I think it sets you up for overindulgence.
Well, and I think for me, for failure, yes. I think too, it's differentiating between like, when I think of my cheat days, my calories probably don't actually change that much, but I would say like my food quality. Of food. I'm eating like more processed food, more like indulgent food, but I'll plan that and I'll maybe either like skip a meal or I'll lighten up one of my meals. So really so I think that's where it gets dangerous too, is when you building up that like thought process of it being a cheat day and just putting everything, into that. But also I think people also, if they're not controlling their calories, then that could, you could be into deficit and that could put you into a surplus because you had, 4,000 more calories than you normally do. And then that over the week or whatever. So.
It increases your net average to the point that you're into surplus. So and I recommend that with my clients. I was having that conversation with somebody today. He's like, oh, I went to this Mexican food restaurant and it blew up my calories and I felt like maybe I shouldn't eat for the rest of the day. And I was like, dude, don't worry about that. Yeah. You don't need to cut yourself off at noon because the meal was a little higher calorie. Maybe the day before or the day after, if it snuck up on you, you dial back a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. And that tends to happen naturally anyways. If you have, a little bit of an overfeed day, you tend to be a little less hungry the next day if the composition of what you're eating is primarily protein or high in protein. I think that's an important qualifier.
That is definitely an important qualifier because it can get real ugly real fast
if there's not protein.
If it's very imbalanced, or let's just say off balance in a different kind of way. Yeah, I like what you said there, and just in terms of having right and left parameters and what's okay and what isn't versus what's cheating, what's right, what's wrong. I mean, I never eat. When I say never, I said I don't eat so perfectly that I could say I'm cheating on anything. So I don't look at it that way. I try to be very consistent and understand that there's going to be inconsistencies. So I just kind of look at it like that. That's life in general, right? Like one thing's for sure is things are going to change and nothing's ever going to be the same.
No one's going to be 100% on point every single day.
No.
Ever. And however, like if you are dieting for like a competition, you're a weight class athlete, you're a physique competitor, or whatever it is, then I don't even think we should be having that conversation, right? Like there should be planned refeed and deficit days, and those would be very specifically planned out with regard to total caloric intake as well as macronutrient profiles. And the people that I know that actually compete, not just show up in a bathing suit, but are competing in these things and winning or placing, or let's just say again being competitive. They don't look at it that way. This is very planned and whatever. So I don't really like that term so much. Again, like where does the inconsistency come in? Well, maybe I look at it this way. The inconsistency is consistent for me when the question was like, what's the cheat meal? Like, where am I going to go overindulge?
Yeah.
Indulge/overindulge. For me, it's sushi every time.
Oh,
and I will fucking eat until they
not your burgers and tots.
They will take it away.
Yeah,
they will take it away.
Yeah, when I go to all you can
cut off.
Oh yeah,
until it's done. Like I'll eat sushi all day long.
Yeah,
and then there's also beer.
Yeah.
So if
you mix those two,
dude, well, no, like that's just like if I'm overindulging, I might as well have the 20 ounce Sapporo.
Yeah.
But the large, bring me the large one.
Yes.
But no, like if there's a brewery thing and there's bar food or whatever, and we're enjoying a Saturday or a Sunday out or whatever. Oh yeah, I'll fuck up a burger, some tots, and a few IPAs. Like I don't care. Like I'm going for it.
Well, sushi's a big one for me, but because you said that, my other one that I pretty regular is I go to In-N-Out and I get 4.
That one's hard to argue too.
I get 4 double doubles and 2 orders of fries.
Shut the fuck up.
I eat 4 double doubles.
Wow.
Oh
That's impressive.
8 by 8.
Yes, an 8 by 8.
That's impressive.
That's a lot of meat.
I don't know. For me, I would say maybe my
cheesecake
my favorite,
cookie or cottage cheese cookies. Or
no, it's probably China food. And I say China food because my kid, when she was little, she'd be like, "I want China food." So now it's called China food. Chinese food is called China food.
Yeah, that's true. You will do that.
I would say yes. When it comes to I do get some Chinese food cravings. Like I don't really get cravings in general, but sometimes I'm like, man, greasy Chinese food.
I have some really good workworkouts the next day.
We've talked about that. Yeah, you're all carbed up, sodiumed up. You got a sick pump, chow mein pump.
I'm not going to turn down some good Chinese food. Living here in the Silicon Valley and kind of where we live, like there are some outstanding like Asian foods.
Yes.
Like you can go to a lot of different places in this city and it's like just one spot after the other.
Yep.
That is one of the nice things about living in. There's no shortage of food like that. Like when you think about all the different cultures and ethnicities and people that are kind of bringing stuff in. Like I've had some amazing food here, but I'm still going sushi all day long.
I love sushi.
I will say though, that's not my go-to cheat meal though. The go-to is burrito. The burrito.
The
burrito is going to be
keeping it simple.
Yeah, the burrito. I had it last night. Thursday burrito night.
What do you put in it?
I mean, sometimes I just go just white guy grilled chicken super burrito. It's got everything in there.
Yeah.
And and then I get 2 bags of chips because I want some chips on the drive home.
Yeah,
that's my little ritual.
One for the road.
Yeah, I get because the bag of chips they give me is a little tiny bag. I'm going to need another.
That's not a bag of chips.
Yeah, I'm going to finish that entire bag before I get home. It's 5 minutes from my house. Yeah. But the burrito, that's definitely the go-to cheat.
What are the most effective exercises to improve speed and power for athletes in any sport?
So when you're looking at speed and power and the exercises that go into that, it's important to understand where speed and power come from. The route to having speed and power is going to come from strength, right? Strength is going to be the foundation for expressing any kind of speed and power. So when people ask, like, what is the best exercise to increase that, we have to go back to the fundamentals and the basics first. Do you have the strength through the chain, like through the human body, in order to create
To produce.
Force production. Right?
So produce or create force, right? Then reduce that force, and we could call that like deceleration, to then stabilize it, to then produce it again, right? Very quickly. And that's kind of the cycle that you're going through when you're going through like a speed workout. Like think of sprinting, right?
Yes.
Sprinting is a great way to increase speed and power through the entire body. However, if you don't have the proper strength, which then contributes to the proper mechanics to then sprint, like even though you might be able to produce some speed and power, the efficiency of what you're able to do there might not necessarily be the best thing for you to be doing. The point of this is when you're looking at speed and power training, we have to first look at the root of this, which is what did the strength training look like with regard to building the proper amount of strength in order to basically prevent injury in was force production, but prevent injury in the speed and power training itself. So let's look at that first. And then we can move into, did the strength training that you did and the way you applied that, did that prepare your body for the speed and power training that you're going to be doing? Not specific to the strength, but more specific to tissue quality, right? The neurological system output, and things like that. So there's just a big question that we're going to try to boil down into something to maybe more of a 3-minute speech here. So that's my take on kind of where to start with this. Wrap your head around, I would not be doing a lot of speed and power training if you're lacking in strength anywhere through the body.
Well, and we talk about, and this is where these different attributes of fitness, there's still some merit to these things of make sure you have good joint integrity and tissue quality and body control and all that stuff before you go into maximal output, right? It's like turning a car loose without having the brakes, right? If you can't go to max speed if you're not prepared for that, right? So I think it's building that strength foundation, and that can be done through the tried and true big foundational movements of like getting into that, squats, deadlifts, all these different things like that. I think you kind of actually named one of probably the best, like most approachable and attainable ways to work on speed and power is repeated sprints. I think it works your full body. Once you are able to do that safely, you have the tissue quality, mobility, and you have the ability to produce force and decelerate, accelerate, all that. Like repeated sprints on whether it's on a woodway treadmill or it's on outside, like being able to do that and accelerate, decelerate, accelerate, decelerate. That I think is one of the easiest ways to work on that.
Yeah, the last thing I would say is just about acceleration, deceleration. We have strength, and again, preparing your body to be able to then do this sprint training or this speed and power training that you're trying to embark on, whatever that is. And there's different applications to everything, but you want to be able to decelerate.
Yes.
Right? That's the slowing it down. And that's where I would actually be focusing a lot of time transitioning from maybe more of a strength-focused routine into a speed and power routine. There's a transitionary period there as I'm kind of coming out of my strength focus then into my speed and power focus, where I'm working these components of deceleration, which then transition into the components of acceleration.
Yes.
So this is a neurological process as well as a tissue preparation process. Yep. And so there are a lot of exercises and a lot of things that you could do. But if we're trying to keep it simple with this sprinting, it would be maybe you're starting with, and this isn't a sprint, but this is a good way to kind of think about deceleration, like starting on a small box and jumping off the box onto the ground.
Before you jump onto it.
Yep. Yeah, landing in your power position, right? Which is different than jumping up. So we're not producing force in that case. We're reducing force in that case. And then that can kind of progress further. That's one way to kind of think about the deceleration piece. But the other thing is like just jog into a quick stop, right? Quick feet. Maybe it's a short little sprint to fast stop, quick feet. Yeah. There's a lot of things there. We're releasing this thing kind of at the end of August or the beginning of September. You'll see some stuff popping up right now. It's September. You'll see Sprint-tember, right? That this is a popular thing that kind of comes up, and you'll see people putting out some stuff. There's a lot of emphasis around sprinting because of the value that you can get there from the speed and power side of things, as well as the total fitness side of things, and it's very applicable. So, sprinting is a really great way to build speed and power. Obviously, where you are in your journey, where you are with your fitness level and jumping into that's very individual and dependent. But I think if we stopped sprinting when we're pretty young. Probably more people should sprint more. But again, who you are and how you're doing that is very important.
Yes.
Are superfoods that beneficial, or is it just good for marketing? What's one superfood you think is worth adding to the diet?
So I guess I would start by saying, like, what defines a superfood? Like, what is the criteria for a superfood?
That says it right there on the label, dude.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking is, like, maybe this is a question that is derived from, like, superfood greens. It's filled with all of the superfoods that have capes on them.
Super expensive.
I guess, there are certain foods that you could probably categorize as quote unquote superfoods, like some of the most nutrient dense foods. The call out in the question was like, what food stands out to you? I would say avocados is probably, that stands out to me as one of the most nutrient dense foods in terms of the types of fats in it, the fiber that's in it, the vitamins and minerals that are in it. That is a food that I would qualify as a superfood. Are superfoods valuable? Well, yeah, I would say so. And there is certainly a list, beyond avocados that, that you should be consuming on a regular basis.
Sure.
I guess, should my diet be comprised solely of superfoods? No, but you should be implementing them on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah, so it's like the definition of this is like nutrient dense food choice based on what it is that you're trying to consume, maybe from a macronutrient and micronutrient profile. So going back to like the avocado, I think it's a great one, man. And like some people eat way too many avocados, and some people probably don't eat enough. They could probably be eating more, avocado. And why? Because when we look at it, like, okay, where does this fit into things? So we look on a macronutrient level, we're looking at a very high quality fat. Right, body's very efficient at pulling.
Checks that box. Yeah,
checks that box. So you could start like really basic from a macronutrient level. Then you could look at the caloric level as compared to the macro and micronutrients. So the macros come along with that, right? The calories come along with the macro, right? Whatever it is, fats, 9 calories per gram, blah blah blah. But what you're getting for every calorie and for every gram of that avocado, when you start to dip down into things like phytonutrients, and vitamin mineral profiles,
potassium, B vitamins, fiber, all those things that are in avocados,
highly dense, right? With regard to that, versus again, you could go to we could move to olive oil as an outstanding source of fat. However, when we start to go down to those different levels, it's not quite as dense, right? With regard to vitamin mineral profiles. Again, then we can get into how was it processed and what type of a container did it come in? And you get lost in the weeds there. I think what we're trying to understand is what is a superfood? I think again, there's a ton of them. And so which ones are the best ones? Well, the ones that provide you the highest quality or highest nutrient density per gram or calorie that you're
how much bang for your buck, nutrient bang for your buck are you getting?
Yeah. So I love what you said. What you said about avocado. It's one that I eat infrequently, but when I do, dude, I dig it. Oh yeah, I love that stuff.
Can I tell you a little story? So with my daughter, when it was time for her to go from formula to food, the pediatrician actually recommended that we start with avocado just because of the nutrient density, all of the things that we talked about. But the other thing is too that children or people generally don't have an allergy to it as well. So it's very easy for them to start with that, and it's very easy for them to put in their mouth and just...
The stuff of life, avocados.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's fruits and vegetables. When I think of fruits and quote unquote superfoods, I like berries.
Yeah, blueberries.
Oh, blueberries.
Yeah, blueberries, strawberries, particularly blueberries. We eat a lot of blueberries.
Every day.
Tons, same. Because of what we just mentioned, high micronutrient density, quality of food getting in there. So I like those. It's not the best one, but I like those because they taste fucking delicious.
They're portable.
Right? They're portable. I can put them in stuff and I'm going to eat them,
Yeah.
So that's a big thing. They're not going to rot in my refrigerator. So that's on the fruit side. When I look at on the protein side, what is it? Well, again, if you're kind of qualifying it that way, one of the other questions, it was what's the go-to cheat food or cheat meal? And it's sushi. I love fish.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, we don't cook a lot of it at home, but I'm going to choose the sources that are high in fat, also high in micronutrients, that are cold water fish, that are naturally caught, not farmed or, raised and being fed corn and, fucking, whatever potatoes, fatten these things up. So I like naturally caught cold water, deep water fish.
Salmon, probably.
Yeah, salmon's a good one.
Mackerel.
Nordic, those exactly. Mackerel. Some of the tunas that exist out there, not all of them are created equal in terms of where they're coming from in the world. We're very spoiled. It was mentioned the sushi thing. We have a guy local that is just a Nazi about where his fish comes from and how he gets it. He's very in tune with this. So that's one. I also like red meat as a source, a dense source of nutrients. A lot of people badmouth red meat. Like I'll take a ribeye or a sirloin any fucking day of the week, and we eat it a couple of times a week. Very high in micronutrients. Obviously, very dense in protein. You have to be careful with how much fat you're maybe onboarding with regard to the total macronutrient profile you're trying to consume. But fat is not bad, and we should not be afraid of that fat. But that said, like red meat, again, non-hormone treated, if you can get that grass-fed or naturally fed meat, happy cows, not cows that are laying around in their own shit and eating their own shit kind of thing. I think it's a great place to go. One thing people might be really surprised of is like the vitamin C content in red meat is very high. Most people would never think that, but it's very high. So again, that's just one example of the micronutrient profile that red meat has. So I like red meat in terms of a quote unquote superfood.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the only one that I have, that's cliche is broccoli. I mean, broccoli is really good for you. I know that's like kind of like the most cliche, like eat your broccoli type of thing. But it's high in fiber. It's high in those phytonutrients. It has something unique called sulforaphane, which is a sulfur-based compound that is great for your liver. It's good for your brain. There's all kinds of benefits to broccoli and cruciferous vegetables in general. So cauliflower, bok choy, Brussels sprouts, all of those in that same family. But I guess kind of a takeaway, if you're looking for like, where could I find superfoods? Foods that are brightly colored tend to kind of give you a clue. I like to think of that as sort of nature's clue, that this is something that maybe you should be consuming. Don't consume all brightly colored things, but
Cheetos,
Tide Pods.
Yeah. So, but yeah, naturally bright things like bell peppers, various fruits, various vegetables, things that are purple, things that are orange, things that are red, things that are yellow. Those types of foods tend to be higher nutrient density.
Yeah, that was nature's way of attracting us to them. Yeah. Right. Eat this so you don't die. Right. It looks good. Like it's attractive. It catches your eye. It's easily spotted. And, as you're out there hunting and
you're foraging
or whatever else. Yeah, it's great advice.